personality who swooned in his kirtans every night. When Mahaprabhu would perform his nocturnal kirtan in the house of Srivas Thakur, and only the intimate associates could be there, Narahari Thakur, he is one of them. He is an eternal associate from Goloka Vrindavan. And so, he has very beautifully described Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu's transcendental contribution, what Mahaprabhu gave, that no one else had ever given. And he puts this in the context that if Mahaprabhu had not come, and if he had not given this, how would we ever have been able to go on living? But we live our lives, but we don't necessarily think like this. But we want one day to be able to feel like this. This is the goal, to feel this mood of absolute subservience and dependence and attachment and separation from Gauranga. That will be the success of our attempt in this life and any future life. If we can develop this kind of mood that is expressed here, this appreciation. So he's saying, Yadi Gauranga Nahito, Tabeki Hoito, Kemone Dorito De. Kemone Dorito De means, how could we have maintained our life? How could we have gone on living if Mahaprabhu had not come? Jadi Gauranga Nahito. If Gauranga had not come, then how could we go on living? Huh? What did he do? What did Mahaprabhu do for us and for everyone? Radhar Mahima Prem Rasa Sima Jagate Janato Ke. He revealed Radhar Mahima. Mahima means greatness. Mahima. Who could ever have understood the greatness of Radha? Radhar Mahima. Prem Rasa Sima. What is her greatness? That Prem Ras, in her only, it has reached Sima. That means the end limit. End limit. So we don't even know what is Prem, what is Prem Ras, what to speak of Prem Ras Sima. Okay? But in another book, in another song by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, he has told very clearly, Gaurangera Duti Pada, Jar Dhana Sampada, Se Jane Bhakti Rasa Sar. Let us analyze this line. It will be very beneficial for us to taste the meaning of this line in relation to this other line here in the song. Narottam Das Thakur said, Gauranger Duti Pada Jardana Sampada. If anyone takes the 2 lotus feet of Gauranga, Gaurangera Duti Pada, as what? He accepts those 2 lotus feet. Jar Dhana Sampad. Dhana Sampad means the greatest wealth. This is your dhana, your sampad, your treasure. Okay? In this world, we have our various attachments to different personalities who are our near and dear ones, right? And we feel sometimes that if that person would die, we would be so extremely distraught and sad. How could we go on living? that kind of attachment. But here Narottam Das Thakur is saying this personality, Gauranga, he's quite different than anyone else in this world. Why? Because if you become attached to his 2 lotus feet, and you accept his 2 lotus feet as your dhana, your wealth, your sampada, your treasure, then what will become? What will happen? Oh, se jane bhakti rasa sar. Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, he explained, what does this mean? Bhakti rasa sar. It means that that person who has accepted Gauranga's lotus feet, he will understand what is 3 things. Bhakti, Bhakti rasa, and Bhakti rasa sar. Okay, so Bhakti. What is Bhakti? That means Shuddha Bhakti, pure Bhakti. Uttama Bhakti, Anya Vilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam, Anakulyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Uttama. The definition verse given by Srila Rupa Goswami, that verse. So if somebody accepts the 2 lotus feet of Gauranga Mahaprabhu as his life and treasure, then he will understand this pure bhakti. He will understand this. That's not such an easy thing to understand. Because guess what? You can only understand it if you do it. Intellectually, you cannot understand. You can only memorize the verse and repeat the words. But anybody who is actually applying that definition in their life, they begin to understand what is this Uttama Bhakti, what is actual Bhakti, because there's many different types of imitation Bhakti, of mixed Bhakti, motivated Bhakti. So, when Srila Gurudev came anywhere, he always quoted this verse, because this will lead you on the correct pathway if you are following this pure Bhakti, Uttama Bhakti. So, Narottam Das Thakur is telling us a very amazing thing, that if one becomes attached to the 2 lotus feet of Lord Gauranga, then that person will enter into real bhakti. So very powerful. Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, his personality, just to know him, to think about him, to become attached to him, to follow his instructions in one's life, and then to become more and more attached to him to the extent that you can't live without him. That he is your very wealth of your whole life. And this will happen. This will happen to each one of us as we very seriously try to commit ourselves to this process given by Gauranga Mahaprabhu through his disciplic succession. This will happen to us. We will become very attached to Lord Gauranga. So once we understand what bhakti is, and we get some realization in our hearts how this pure bhakti is my only asset of my life. Everything else is useless. Only this pure bhakti, like Mahaprabhu is describing in the Sikshastakam. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. Mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktir ahoitu kitvaye. That's actually describing the stage of ruchi. Ruchi, when so much taste comes in practicing the pathway of Shuddha Bhakti, and ruchi arises, then that mood will come into us that na dhanam, oh my Lord, oh Jagadish, I don't want anything of the temporary, valuable things of this world. I don't want. Na dhanam, na janam. I don't want any followers and family members and adoring people to me. I don't need this, I don't want this. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim kavitam. I don't also want to go to the heavenly planets. I don't want elevation within this material universe and go to the topmost planets of the universe and enjoy the heavenly delights with beautiful heavenly damsels in the Nanda Kanana gardens, drinking somaras for millions of years. No, I don't want. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim kavitam, ma jagadishakam. What do I want? Mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktir ahoy tuki tvai. I am praying from the core of my heart, O Krishna, I only want one thing. Bhavatad bhaktir ahoy tuki tvai. I want your causeless, pure bhakti in my life. So when that attachment to Gauranga Mahaprabhu comes, then automatically we will enter into that pure life of pure bhakti. Prabhupada came to give this. Srila Sridhar Maharaj came to give this. Srila Gurudev came to give this. All of our acharyas, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, all came to give this wealth of Gaur Prem through this practice of Shuddha Bhakti, pure Bhakti. So if someone understands and accepts who Gauranga Mahaprabhu is, becomes so attached to him, he is the wealth of my life. Narottam Das is saying, he automatically will understand Bhakti, and then he will understand gradually what is Bhakti Rasa. What is Bhakti Rasa? Mahaprabhu came to inundate the whole world with Bhakti Rasa. And just like the other night, when we were speaking about Ramananda Roy conversation, then he quoted that verse, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati Kriyatam api kutopi lapyate Tatra dolyam api mulyam ekalam Janmakoti sukritayar nalapyate. And there, the definition of Krishna consciousness, I mentioned, how Srila Prabhupada singled out this verse and told that this is the foundational verse for my selection of the name of this society, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So, International Society for what? For entering into and fully becoming immersed in Krishna Bhakti Rasa. Bhakti Rasa. So Gauranga Mahaprabhu, he is telling everyone, enter into this Bhakti Rasa through Harinam Samkirtan. Harinam Samkirtan, the most powerful process. Mahaprabhu inundated everyone's hearts in all directions through his entire pastimes, through Harinam Samkirtan, hearing, chanting, remembering. And one day, that Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati, it will manifest by the mercy of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So then, after that has been adequately entered into, then what happens? Then you will understand. Sejane Bhakati, Bhakati Rasa Sar. So Sar means essence. What is the essence of Bhakti Rasa? What is the essence? That is described in this song. Radhar Mahima Prem Rasa Sima. The end limit of Prem Ras. End limit. That is what Gauranga Mahaprabhu gave in this world. Radhar Mahima. by broadcasting the glories of Srimati Radhika. Only he did that. No one else has broadcast in this way as Gauranga Mahaprabhu had done. So Narahari Das Thakur, he is expressing like this, Janate Jagate Janato Ke. Who would have been able, if Mahaprabhu had not come, whoever would have been able to understand this end limit of Srimati Radhika's praying? No one would have been able to understand. And then he goes on, Madhura Vrinda Vipina Madhuri Pravesha Chaturi Sa. Madhura Vrinda, that means that Sri Vrindavan Dham in which Srimati Radhika is always engaging in so many sweet pastimes with Krishna, and all of her Sakhis, and this whole world, this whole realm of complete sweetness, expanding in all directions, through this prem ras, gopi prem, and all the other rasas of Braj. So that Madhura Vrinda, that forest where all of this sweetness is manifested, Madhura Vrinda Vipina Madhuri. So, who would ever have been able to enter into that? Pravesha Chaturi Sar. Even if they were very intelligent and discriminating, they could not pravesh, they could not enter, they could not comprehend if Mahaprabhu had not revealed this to the world. Varaja Yuvati, Bhavera Bhakti, Shakati Hoi Tokar. Varaja Yuvati means the Braja Gopis. Varaja Yuvati, Bhavera Bhakti. What were their moods? What was their bhavs? How they lived 24 hours, remembering Krishna as they're doing their chores, their daily chores in their household. Srila Gurudev used to manifest one very beautiful little song as he himself became immersed in describing these moods. Then he would sing a song for the audience. Most of you here, you have been present a number of times when Srila Gurudev would sing this. And he was transporting everyone to that land, that spiritual land where Krishna is playing in the sweetest of ways, and especially where the Braja Gopis are always immersed in thinking about him, in speaking about him, in singing about him, while they're doing their chores in their home, while they're sweeping floors, while they're looking after their young children, whatever they're doing, they're always immersed in singing the glories of Krishna. And they sing, Govinda Damodara Madhaveti, Govinda Damodara Madhaveti, Govinda Damodara Madhaveti, Govinda Damodara Madhaveti. So, you all remember how Srila Gurudev, practically weeping, he would sing this song, he would describe this, and somehow he would open some little door, some little window, so we could peek inside a little bit into those moods. So this is what Narahari Das is telling here. Varaja Yuvati Bhavera Bhakti. What was their moods of the Braja Gopis? It is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, in their songs of the Gopis, that the Gopis were singing, 5 different songs in Srimad Bhagavatam. But those deep moods, how to comprehend them, how to understand them, Only in the Rupanuga Sampradaya, those moods were fully revealed. What were their separation moods? So this song of appreciation, Narahari Thakur, he's again and again telling that you should chant Gaurang Gera Guna again and again. Gau Punak Punak Gaurang Gera Guna. Sarala Hoy Yaman. How will you be able to know and appreciate this Gauranga? Then sing his glories again and again. Puna Puna means again and again. Go, singing. Go Punak Puna. Gaurang Gera Guna. Describe this Gauranga. Hear about his pastimes. Hear about his glorious qualities. Read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, these authorized literatures, with a simple heart. Sarala Hoyama. Sarala means very simple, pure heart, humble. I will hear about Gauranga and continually chant his glories. Then, E Bhavasagare, Emona Doyal, Na Dekiye Ekajan. In this whole Bhavasagara, that means this whole ocean of material existence, there has never been seen, anyone has never seen such a merciful personality. Emona Doyal, this mercy that Gauranga has given. If we actually understood this truly, and we accepted it, we would immediately drop to the ground in ecstatic bliss of our good fortune. We would jump for joy, and we would forget about everything else. If we really understood what mercy Mahaprabhu has come to do. But we will understand it one day by chanting, by following this pathway. Then we will understand this mercy of Gauranga. So he's now showing his own mood. Gauranga Golya Nagenu Galya Kemone Dhorinu De. Although I am singing Gauranga's glories, but one problem. I'm not melting, my heart is not melting. He's lamenting like we should lament. Because we chant, we sing, but our heart not melting. So he's teaching such an exalted Mahabhagavat, eternal associate of the Lord. He himself is expressing, oh, I'm so unfortunate. I don't really even have a genuine heart. I have a stone in its place. I don't really possess a heart. My heart is so hard, not melting, although Gauranga has given so much. So when we sing this, we should also think like this, because that's truly our situation. But one day, by this process, singing, hearing these songs, our hearts will melt. We will become very overwhelmed by Gauranga Mahaprabhu's mercy. So we can sing this very beautiful song and then discuss our topic for this evening. No. Jadi Gauranga Naito Tabe ki Bhakti Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Vinatara Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Bhagavin Vaishnavebhyo Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurachishe He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Vrindai Tulsi Devyai Priyai Keshavasya Devi Satyachari Panchatattvatmakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I offer my Dandavat Pranams, my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet, my beloved Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Padasta Tarasata, Shri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. The Shakti Avesh Avatar of Sri Nityananda Prabhu's Shakti. My same Dandavat Pranams I'm offering at the lotus feet of my beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Ashtatarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Shri Dhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Ashtatarasata Shri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami. My Dandavat Pranams to the lotus feet of all my Shri Raganuga Guru Varga. My Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, friends and guests. So in Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, Bindu means drop. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is giving a drop of this ocean that Srila Rupa Goswami has opened up to the whole world in the form of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And there he has vividly described the process. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he came to the lotus feet of Sri Ramananda Roy and accepted him like Guru, wanted to hear from him. So at that time he requested from Ramananda Roy to please describe the sadhya, the goal. What is the ultimate goal to be attained? Because Mahaprabhu came into this world especially to accomplish that. What is the goal? The sadhya. And then he wanted to understand the sadhana, the method of attainment. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, later on, after he had heard from Ramananda Rai, then in the remaining pastimes, he desired to go to Vrindavan. And he tried 2 times to go to Vrindavan. First time was immediately after taking sannyas. That was his destination. I'm going to Vrindavan. But Nityananda Prabhu brought him to Sri Advaita Acharya's residence. But Mahaprabhu's mood was to go to Vrindavan. Then after he toured South India and returned to Jagannath Puri, then he also informed his devotees that he's going to Vrindavan. And what did he do? He went all the way up to Bengal and beginning to cross through the jungle regions on foot. But even before he left, there was one great devotee who was named Nishringananda Brahmachari, wasn't it? Yes, Nishringananda Brahmachari, who was very powerful in his meditation. And he wanted to, in his mind, he wanted to create an extremely, exquisitely beautiful pathway, a road that Mahaprabhu can walk on his way to Vrindavan. So in his mind, he actually meditated on creating this as Mahaprabhu was walking along. In his mind, he did this for the entire journey of Mahaprabhu, and he was creating this road, like constructing it. But it was not an ordinary road. It was made from Chintamani gems and beautiful flowering vines and trees and kunjas along the way, so many jewels and gems sparkling, and Mahaprabhu would dance and sing on this road going to Vrindavan. So sometimes it's also said, Rupa Goswami describes in the Nectar of Devotion. There's another description of a great sage who was a devotee of Lakshmi Narayan. The old devotees here may remember one painting, it was in the Nectar of Devotion, that this old sage, he also was doing Manasi Seva in the mind, and he was, because he was very poor, he didn't have any ingredients, so he would collect in his mind all the ingredients that he could cook very palatable sweet rice and offer it to his worshipable lordships, Sri Lakshmi Narayan. So, very laboriously in his mind, he was focusing and concentrating on gathering together the rice and the milk and the sugar and the camphor and the other ingredients, saffron. And he was cooking this in his mind. And then he decided, oh, I have to check to see if it has cooled down enough to offer. Everything had to be perfect. This is his meditation. Should not be too hot, should not be too cold. So, Lakshmi Narayan, his lordships, they were also observing this devotee. How this devotee was so absorbed. And they were receiving his worship. So, when this devotee, in his mind, he put his finger into the sweet rice to test. And Lakshmi Narayan played little joke on him, that the sweet rice was still scalding hot. So when he touched it in his mind, he went, ah, ah! And his finger, was burned. So then Lakshmi Narayan, they understood, oh, it is now his time to come. They sent their flower airplane from Vaikunta and brought him there. So that picture is there, of the sage burning his finger, and then the airplane is coming from Vaikunta. You remember that old one? So, Manasi Seva was this brahmachari was doing it. And he was so absorbed, and he was building this beautiful, beautiful pathway. But at one point in his meditation, he couldn't go any further. Something was blocking. In his mind, the construction could not go beyond that point. And then he came out of his trance of meditation, and he told all the devotees, Mahaprabhu will not go to Vrindavan on this journey. He will only reach Kanai Natashala, was the place, on the borders of Bengal. But then he would turn back and he would come all the way back. You see, Kanai Natashala. So in that way, the meditation of this brahmachari could understand. That is the power of the pure Vaishnava. So that happened. Mahaprabhu went there to that place, but just in that area, who did he meet? Sri Rupa and Sanatana Goswami in the village called Ramakeli. Mahaprabhu came there. And that was the purpose, actually, of his going there. To meet Rupa and Sanatana their younger brother Anupam also came. So the whole history of Mahaprabhu's relationship with Rupa and Sanatan began, this description in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and later on they were released from their situation in life, because at that time they had become outcast from the Hindu and Vedic culture, Varnashram, because they had taken employment by Muslim king. So it's a whole history. But later on, when they were released and they escaped, and they came with nothing, they renounced everything to come to Mahaprabhu. Tyaktva Turanam Ashesha Mandalapati Shrenim Sada Tuchavat. In the Sad Goswami Ashtakam, Srila Srinivasa Acharya, he has written that the 6 Goswamis, each one of them, they gave up all aristocracy. Ashesha Mandalapati. Mandalapati means kingly life. And they truly were. Srila Sanatana Goswami was like prime minister of that region. Prime minister. They gave up everything completely. Shrenim Sada Tuchavat. Tuchavat means they gave it up as if completely insignificant. Bhutva Dina Ganesha Ko Karunaya Kopina Kantashrita. Bhutva Dina Ganesha Ko Karunaya. They had so much mercy towards the fallen souls. Dina Ganesh. Kopina Kantashrito. Therefore, they accepted loincloth. That was the symbol of renunciation. Kopin, loincloth. They accepted that. Simple tattered clothing. Kopina Kantashrito. But Gopi Bhava Rasam Ritabdi Lahari Kalola Magno Mahur. But they were always completely absorbed in the moods of the gopis. Gopi Bhava Rasam Ritabdi Lahari. Like always moved by the waves of Gopi Prem, inundating their hearts. So those personalities were chosen by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Rupa and Sanatan, each one of them separately came to meet Mahaprabhu. Just on that journey, on his 3rd journey, when he did go to Vrindavan, on his 3rd and final journey, when he finally did go to Vrindavan, then after his visit to Vrindavan, then he came to Varanasi and Prayag separately. And in each one of these 2 places, he met Rupa Goswami in Prayag and Sanatana Goswami in Varanasi, which was called Allahabad. So those 2 personalities were directly instructed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just as we heard the other day, Mahaprabhu came to the banks of Godavari and he heard the instructions of Ramananda Roy. But now, in these 2 places, Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis, they received directly the transcendental Gauravani. Gauravani Pracharane. Srila Gurudev used to say that pranam mantra to our Srila Prabhupada says, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane. All glories to the servant of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who is preaching the message of Gauranga, Gauravani Pracharane, in the Western countries and delivering them from Nirvishesh Shunyavad, to impersonalism, voidism, Shunyavad. So Gauravani, Srila Gurudev said, what is the Gauravani? And then he said, that which has issued directly from the lotus mouth of Gauranga, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings. So those teachings were imparted directly by him to Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis. And then Rupa, Sanatan, they manifested. They were empowered by this. And then they manifested these transcendental Rasa Shastras, these literatures, to proclaim the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings to the whole world, and to reveal what no one has ever revealed before. That was placed in their heart by Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu sent them to Vrindavan, where they would do their worship, and all would be revealed in their hearts. Yes, so Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis, their treasures of their transcendental literatures are the greatest contribution ever given in this world, ever. If anybody analyzes the subject matter and compares it to anything else, they will easily be able to see no other literature comes close at all. So this Rasa Shastras, Srila Rupa Goswami, his first book was the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And that book, which Prabhupada gave as Nectar of Devotion, that book was studied by all the Gaur Bhaktas for hundreds of years. And then, when Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was living in the world, now he wrote this like a commentary, but more like a study guide, how to study the great literature of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami, how to comprehend it and study it. So therefore he called it Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, like taking a drop of that ocean of Bhakti Rasa that has been revealed by Rupa Goswami. Therefore, by studying this, it makes the whole book accessible. You get an overview of the subject matters in this literature. So, I was discussing the other day how there are different types of sadhana bhakti, two different types. One type is Vaidhi, regulative sadhana bhakti. And one type is Raganuga bhakti. So, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti has a particular type of shraddha connected with it. Shraddha, we also discussed the other day, means strong faith. Shraddha. But faith in what? Faith in Krishna bhakti. Faith, strong belief, dridha, very firm belief that I must do bhakti to Krishna in my life. I must do bhakti to Krishna. And if I do bhakti to Krishna, sarva karma krita hoy. All my requirements in life, they will be accomplished. If I do bhakti to Krishna. That's called shraddha. And it manifests outwardly in the form of sharanagati, surrender, following the process of surrender in one's life. Now, that type of bhakti in which someone becomes eligible to practice the system of sadhana, there is a particular type of faith called Shastra Avadharanamayi Shraddha. Shastra Avadharanamayi Shraddha. It means that you have very firm faith in the Shastras, in the prescriptions, the rules and regulations which have been given in the Shastras. Someone's phone. Rules and regulations that have been given in the Shastras. And in the Shastras it is told that if one does not serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then they will fall down from their position. So I want to study these sections so that we can get a clear understanding. Bhakti is of two kinds. All right. So in this section, it is actually the 8th verse of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is analyzing this verse. And in this verse, the symptoms of Vaidhi Bhakti are being described. If the limbs of Bhakti, such as Shravanam and Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, if they are being performed out of fear of scriptural discipline, it is called Vaidhi Bhakti. So Vaidhi means vidhi, rules and regulation. So when this is performed and there is a sense of some fear there, then it is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Now, Bhakti is of two kinds, Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. The limbs of sadhana that are performed on the paths of both these types of Bhakti, they are generally considered to be one and the same. So what does that mean? That means that whether someone is practicing Vaidhi Bhakti or Raganuga Bhakti, even though there's quite some considerable difference between them, but the limbs of Bhakti are the same, meaning you're still doing Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam. The 9 practices of Bhakti are the same. One will still be performing them. But nonetheless, there is a specific distinction between them. In some devotees, there is an intense longing or greed called lobha that is the cause of their engagement in bhakti. So, we heard the other day in the verse of Ramananda Roy that Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati Kriyatam Api Kutopi Labhyate Tatra Lolyam Api Mulyam Ekalam. That this transcendental consciousness of Krishna Bhakti Rasa, it can only be obtained by intense longing and greed. It cannot be attained by sukriti from previous lifetimes. So that intense longing and greed, it is actually the cause of the person in this stage, Raganuga Bhakti. It is the cause of their engaging in the practices of bhakti. Whereas in others who don't have this lobha, then the discipline of the scriptures is the cause of engagement in bhakti. So, there's a verse that is quoted here by Rupa Goswami, and it says, Yatra raganavaptatvat pravritir upajayate shashanenaiva shastrasya sa vaidhi bhaktir uchate. So this is what is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Means sadhan bhakti that is not inspired by this intense longing, but is instigated instead by the discipline of the scriptures, it is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Okay, so now that's clear. Well, Vaidhi Bhakti is inspired by what? The discipline of the scriptures, which has some element of fear. So one should understand what is meant by the discipline of the scriptures. In all scriptures, of which Srimad Bhagavatam is the foremost, Bhagavad Bhakti is said to be the supreme duty for the jivas. So, what is our duty to perform as a living entity? To worship Bhagavan, Bhagavad Bhakti, to do bhakti to the Supreme Lord. This is the supreme duty of every living entity, every jiva. So if a person fulfills all his worldly obligations, but he does not engage in Hari Bhajan, what happens to that person?
He'll come back again and suffer some more.
A little bit lower than that. What happens to that person who fulfills his worldly obligations, but he does not engage in Hari Bhajan? He descends to a dreadful hell. And that's described in Srimad Bhagavatam, what those hells are. So, not good, right? Right? Not good?
Fearful.
Fearful? Ah. Now, there's a verse to prove this, which is quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto. Ya esham purusham shakshad atma prabhavam ishwaram na bhajanti avajananti stanad brashta patanti adha. Means what? This Supreme Personality, Purusham, the original Supreme Lord, He is Himself the creator of what? Varnashram Dharma. He created it in this world. So He has installed in human society a system that comes from Him that you should follow. So He is the Lord, and He is the controller and the soul of all jivas. He is the Paramatma. Atma Prabhavam Ishwaram. So therefore, if anyone belonging to the four Varnas and Ashrams fails to worship the Lord and disrespects Him instead, he is deprived of his position, his Varna and Ashram, and he falls down to hell. So that conception is there in the Vedas. It is declared in Shastras. So we also see that in various other religions, modern day religions, Christianity, Muslim, so much talk of punishment, isn't it? And also encouragement. Should fear the Lord, should have fear of God. The fear is called a good thing there, because then you'll be obedient. Now, when there is a superior person and an inferior, there will always be a sense of some respect. Respect, this mood of great respect, has a little bit of reverence and awe to someone greater than oneself. So then there's some fear, slight fear is there. Okay, that fear element is the beginning of obedience. Like a child. A child also has to be disciplined, right? And discipline requires sometimes some fear. Is that true or not? Yes?
Yeah, we're afraid to get slapped.
Naturally it is. And we see it manifest anywhere with anyone that has children. They need to be put in line. But that is showing love. So similarly, the Supreme Lord has given prescription in the Vedas for all jivas, because He's the Lord of all jivas, and therefore He's created Varnashram. And if someone does not follow that, and they do not worship the Lord within Varnashram Dharma, then what will happen? They will have to fall down to hell. Now, this is utilized, this fear element is utilized, we know, in certain other religions, with fire and brimstone preaching, you see. But in the Vedas it is not like this. Still it is there. That awareness is there. That if I don't follow this, I will get such and such result. And of course, some people like to forget about it, ignore it. But the fact is, you will reap what you sow. You will get the result of your actions. That will happen. You cannot avoid that. But mercy element is also there. mercy. Supreme mercy is also there, especially in this present time. The greatest sinners of all sinners, they were all saved by Mahaprabhu. But they accepted the process. They began to live the process in their life. And they were fully purified. Okay. So, Rupa Goswami is quoting this verse, and he's defining what is Vaidhi Bhakti. Then also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has described the substance of this shloka in another verse given here. In Bengali he wrote, Chari Varnashrami Jadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje. That means if someone doesn't worship Krishna in the four Varna ashram system, Swakarma Korite Se Rorava Padimaje. Then, although they may obtain elevation due to material prestige, but their piety will wane, and they will most certainly fall down to the hell known as Rorava. Different types of hells described. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, Devarshi Narada Muni has said, Tasmad Kenap Upayena Mana Krishna Nishevayet. It means the basic and the primary aim of all types of sadhana is to fix the mind on Krishna by whatever method is effective. So, Tasmat Kenap Upayena Mana Krishna Nishevayat. So in the Vedas, all the different prescriptions, rules and regulations, ultimately they're meant for this, that our mind will be fixed on Krishna. Mana Krishna Nishevayat. To remember Krishna. And then he quotes from the Padma Purana, which also elucidates the same point. Smartavya satatam vishnur vismartavya najatu chit. Sarve vidhi nishedhasyur etayor eva kinkara. That means that which has been ascertained in the scriptures to be the duty for the jivas is called vidhi, regulation. And that which has been forbidden is called nishad, prohibition. Okay, so the Vedas, the Shastras, they have many, many different positive regulations, and they also have prohibitions, nishad. The Vaidha Dharma for the jivas, or the religion that is enacted in accordance with scriptural regulations, involves observing rules and prohibitions. So no jiva in this world, without accepting rules and prohibitions given in the Shastras, can advance spiritually. They must go through this. One should remember Lord Vishnu at all times. That is what is told in this verse. Smartavyam satata Vishnur. Means always. Always to remember Vishnu. And Vismartavyam najatuchit. Not to forget him at any time. This is the basis of all the rules and regulations of the Shastras. So why follow rules and regulations? Why are there so many rules and regulations? To train one, to make one more and more capable of fixing the mind on Krishna, remembering Vishnu, remembering Krishna. So, all the regulations of Varna and Ashrama they are attendants of this primary injunction. Never forget the Lord at any time. This is the basis of all prohibitory injunctions. All the prohibitory injunctions, such as avoidance of sin, abandonment of apathy towards the Lord, abandonment of apathy towards the Lord, atonement of sins. These are all attendants of this primary prohibition. What is the primary prohibition? Not to forget at any time. So all of these are attendants. They will help for one to follow this primary prohibition. and primary suggestion. Injunction. So to observe these rules and these prohibitions is to accept the discipline and the direction of the scriptures. And when the jivas are engaged in bhakti out of fear of violating the directions of the scriptures, it is called Vaidhi Bhakti. So, is this good? Is Vaidhi Bhakti good?
It's okay.
If it gets you going.
It gets you going. Yes. It's necessary, actually. It's necessary to bring the conditioned soul from their sinful attachments in this world, from their non-regulated senses and mind, and to enable them to come into this pathway of discipline, whereby one can engage in all the positive activities given in the Shastras and remember Krishna. Because ultimately, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Shukadeva Goswami is describing, in the very beginning of his speaking, Shukadeva Goswami speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, he's describing there that what is the actual purpose of all? Ante Narayana Smriti. That at the end of this life, one can remember Narayana, Supreme Lord Krishna. Ante Narayana Smriti. So, when the jivas are engaged in bhakti out of fear of violating the directions of the scriptures, it is called Vaidhi Bhakti. So I don't know about you, but in my own experience, I can remember when I first came and I learned about the tattva, Maya tattva, Jiva tattva, Krishna tattva, Bhakti tattva, all these different truths. And I began to understand the law of karma, that the law of karma is supremely powerful within this world. And then naturally I became aware that certain activities, they will cause a certain effect which is undesirable. If I do that, if I continue to do that, I am committing suicide. So therefore the Shastras bring us in line. And they enable us to come into the actual pathway of Bhagavad Bhajan, where we become eligible to worship the Supreme Lord. But some element must be there of this Shastra Avadharanamayi Shraddha. Firm faith in the Shastras and some fear element. That I must do this, otherwise I am causing my own ruination. So now, by taking darshan of the deity of the Lord, and by hearing the sweetness of Krishna's pastimes in childhood, in his boyhood and his youth, as it is described in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, then intense longing, lobha, arises for the practice of bhajan. So did you hear that? Here's the formula. What is the formula? Taking darshan of the beautiful deity form of the Lord and hearing about the sweetness of Krishna's pastimes. His childhood pastimes, his Balya Leela. So many sweet pastimes. We sing every year during Kartik the Damodar Ashtakam, which beautifully describes that Leela of Krishna when he was very small and he was exhibiting fear because Mother Yashoda was chasing him with a stick because he had done mischief and he had stolen yogurt and created so much problems. And in this way, that beautiful pastime describes that Krishna flooded all of Gokul in pools of ecstasy. In that song described, everyone was flooded in pools of ecstasy by this one Leela and all of Krishna's other childhood pastimes. Gurudev would be so expert in describing that Damodar Leela. That's when he would also sing that song, Govinda Damodar Madhaveti, how Mother Yashoda was churning the yogurt into butter. So these descriptions are filled with such sweetness that when one hears these from the lips of the pure Vaishnavas, and also as Srila Prabhupada manifested the Krishna book, where all the pastimes of Krishna from the 10th canto are given. Because without this, one will not be able to enter into Raganuga Bhakti. And it is only through Raganuga Bhakti that one can enter into Braj. Because only in Braj is this mood of intense attachment to Krishna. That deep attachment to Krishna, spontaneous, is found only in the eternal associates of Krishna. And only by following them, anuga means to follow, only by following their moods, hearing about them, can one gradually attain lobha, intense longing, intense desire. I also want to love Krishna like that. I want to be in Vrindavan. I want to serve Krishna eternally, like the Brijvasis are associating with him and serving him. When this longing comes in the heart, then the actual qualification for beginning the practice of Raganuga Sadhana, then it can come. So, when intense longing has not arisen yet, in other words, when lobha is not the cause of one's engagement in bhakti, and the discipline of the scriptures alone is the cause for such engagement, then it is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Okay. So now, the verse 9 of Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is giving his commentary on that. So he's quoting two verses written by Rupa Goswami. These are very famous. These are the definition verses of Raganuga Bhakti. How to do Raganuga Bhakti. Seva sadhaka rupena, siddha rupena chatrahi, tad bhava lipsuna karya, vraja loka anusarata. Krishnam smaram janam chasya, preshtam nijam samihitam. Tat tat kata ratas chaso, kuryad vasam vraje sada. So these two verses are filled with so much nectar in these two verses. It is directly, here is the process. But in order to perform this, what is needed? Lobha, greed. If one tries to perform this, Srila Gurudev will explain, if one tries to perform this without lobha, it may degrade him. It may degrade. So now, Srila Gurudev is giving his Sri Bindu Vikashana Vritti, his commentary, on the words of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Devotion that involves the practice of the limbs of bhakti such as Shravanam and Kirtan, which is carried out by sadhaks with an intense longing, lobha, to obtain the service of their innermost desired object, Rajendra Nandan Sri Krishna, that it is called Raganuga Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti is performed in two ways. Very essential to understand this. One, It is performed with the Sadak Rupa. What is the Sadak Rupa? It is this external body that we have. So we're living in this world of the senses and the sense objects. But Raganuga Bhajan should also be performed with our body and our senses. Okay? But also, Raganuga Bhajan is performed with the Siddha Rupa. That means, Siddha Rupa means the internally conceived body that is suitable for carrying out the perfected service, Prem Seva, for which one aspires. This perfected Rupa. Rupa means form. Siddha Rupena Chatrahi. But Rupa Goswami specifically is told that Seva Sadhaka Rupena Siddha Rupena Chatrahi. Raganuga Bhakti must be done in both ways. If one is not eligible to perform with the Siddha Rupa, then what happens? One is not yet given entrance. One cannot enter into the Raganuga Sadhana. So one has to be given some familiarity with the Siddha Rupa, with one's spiritual form that is conceived within, that represents his longing to attain a particular service to Krishna. If that longing mood is not there, how can the Siddha Rupa be there? Now Gurudev is going to also explain in the course of this discussion here how there are many persons who try to enter in an unauthorized way. We see that going on today also. That they try to enter by accepting some process called Siddha Pranali. Actually, Siddha Pranali means process of Siddhi. Process. Pranali means process. But they are told that you have such and such symptoms of your spiritual body. So, with those 11 different items that are within your spiritual form, now you can meditate upon those, and gradually you will realize that that is yourself. This is the modern concocted method. Not that this is not a bona fide method, that this method is bona fide. It is given by the Goswamis. But the perversion of this is when it is given out to those who have no qualification, who have not gone past anartha nivritti. They have not yet become qualified. So the result of that, what happens is mundane lust and degradation comes. So, residing in Braja with an intense desire to obtain one's cherished object, Sri Krishna, and the divine sentiments of his beloved associates, that means rati, towards Sri Krishna, their divine sentiments. So living in Braj with an intense desire to obtain one's cherished object, Sri Krishna, and the divine sentiments of his beloved associates, rati, there one should follow in the footsteps of the eternal residents of Braj, the dear associates of Sri Krishna, such as who? Srimati Radhika, Lalita, Vishaka, Sri Rupa Manjari. One should also adhere to personalities such as Sri Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, who performed bhajan in Braj in pursuance of the sentiments of those eternal associates. So, Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, they were showing in their residence in Braj how to do Brajvas, how to live in Braj, how to enter into the moods of following the eternal associates of Sri Krishna in their sadhak rupa, in their own form within this world. They showed how to perform sadhan bhajan. And how did they do sadhan bhajan in that form? Sankhya purvaka nama gana natibi kalavasani krito. What is meaning?
Sankhya Purvaka Nam, they performed a regulated number of rounds, which was Sankhya Purvaka Nam Agadi. And the next line is
Namagana means
Namagana.
they were always chanting Nam, Krishna Nam, in a regulated way. Sankhya. Sankhya means counting. Purvaka Namagana natibi kalavasani krito. So this means that in a regulated way, time sequences, they regulated their lives and they performed specific amount of namagan and natibi. Natibi means performing obeisances all over Braj Mandal, again and again and again, doing dandavat pranams like this. Nidrahara vihara kadi vijito chatyanta dino chayo. Nidrahara means sleeping and eating. Nidrahara vihara kadi. And vihara means relaxation, because sometimes there must be some break. So, nidrahara vihara kadi vijito chatyanta dino chayo. They were always conquering over these demands of the body. They conquered over. Nidrahara vihara kadi vijito. Vijito means they became victorious over them. So they showed in their own sadhan bhajan. Chatyanta dino chayo. Atyanta din means extremely low and fallen. They considered themselves. They had that mood of utter humility in their execution of sadhan bhajan. And then, what was it? Nidrahara vihara kadi vijito chatyanta dino chayo. Radha Krishna gunasmriter madhurima nandena sammohito. As they were doing this, with their external sadhak rupa, what was their internal mood? Radha Krishna gunasmriter madhurima anandena sammohito. They became continually enchanted, enraptured by remembering Radha and Krishna's qualities, names, forms, etc. So Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuya Goshaji, powerful. 6 Goswamis are the example. So here, Srila Gurudev is saying that one who is trying to practice the pathway of Raganuga must perform in the sadhak group, okay? And follow Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, our acharyas. That's in the sadhak group, in this body. And Siddha Rupena Chatrahi, then following in the Siddha Rupa, the eternal residence of Braj. Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, Rupa, Manjari, and others. With one's internally conceived Siddha Rupa, one should execute service within the mind, Manasi Seva, in accordance with the eternal associates of Braj, such as Sri Radha, Lalita, Vishaka, and Sri Rupa Manjari. Again he repeats. With the external body, Sadhaka Rup, one should carry out bodily services, following in the wake of the perfectly realized devotees, such as Sri Rupa and Sanatan, who are also residents of Braja. Now, if someone raises the objection that the word Braja Loka, that's in this verse, Braja Loka Anusarita, that word refers only to Sri Radha, Lalita and others, then it would then follow that with the Sadak Deha, the external body, one should perform bodily services following in their wake. If this indeed were the case, then the followers of those eternal associates would not be required to carry out the limbs of bhakti, such as taking shelter of a spiritual master, Guru Padashraya, such as observance of Ekadashi, worship of Shalagram, worship of Tulsi, and so on, since it is not mentioned anywhere that Sri Radha and Lalita ever performed such activities. However, this erroneous conclusion, which is called apasiddhanta, it is held by skeptics who have taken shelter of modern adverse opinions, and it is actually refuted by the word Braja Loka. So, I'm going to clarify this because you may not understand all, have not necessarily followed. In his commentary to this verse of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Jiva Goswami Pad has explained the same thing, namely, that the word Vrajaloka refers to the dearmost associates of Sri Krishna and their followers, such as Sri Rupa Goswami and others. Therefore, one should perform internal service, manasi seva, through the medium of the Siddha Deha by following in accordance with Sri Rupa Manjari and other Brajbasis, and with the Sadak Deha one should perform bodily service by following Sri Rupa Goswami and others. So, this is very important. Gurudev is going to give a comment to really clarify all of this. But this is very essential to understand. Why? Because the nature of those who have deviated, apasiddhanta, is that they concoct their own method of sadhana. This is always seen in all the different apasampradayas. And very often, if not always, that's why they are, in general, they're called Sahajya Sampradayas. Because Sahaj actually is not a bad word. Sahaj means natural. Sahaj. It also means simple, easy. Sahaj. So, what is naturally performed by the eternal associates of Radha and Krishna is in this category of their rag, their natural spontaneous love for Krishna. But those who try to imitate this and not follow the example of Sri Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, how they followed sadhana bhajan in this world, how they practiced hearing and chanting, how they followed all the different rules and regulations, Ekadasi, everything. They worshiped the deity. But those who want to deviate from this, then they say, oh, there is no need, because Rupa Goswami said, Vrajaloka Anusarita, that you should simply follow the Brajlok. Anusar, the word Anusar, let me explain this. There are two words, Anusar and Anukar. Anusaranam, Anukaranam. Srila Sridhar Maharaj explained this. So, Anukar means to imitate something. And Anusar means to properly follow that thing. Just like the word Anugatya, okay? Anugatya, to properly follow. But those who want to imitate, they are doing what is called Anukar. Simply imitating that, but not having any qualification. I'll give one example. You know, in the pastimes of our great Param Gurudev, Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj, who was living in Sri Navadvip Dham, completely immersed in the eternal pastimes of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and living in the actual Navadvip Dham, which is non-different than Sri Vrindavan Dham. So his renunciation was so extreme that he just lived on the banks of the Ganga. Even people wanted to construct cottages for him and so many facilities. He was not interested. His bhajan was on such a high level that he shunned everything of the mundane world. And he became very renowned as such a high-level sadhu, such a renunciate. He became very renowned. And he sometimes was approached by different individuals asking for his advice. We have a small little biographical literature describing some of these exchanges that he had. And always he would try to benefit that person. There was one person who came, and because he knew that Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj was a very exalted personality, so he wanted to become like him, but also there was something else. Some other desire was in his heart. It was not completely pure. So what that young Babaji did, he constructed a hut not far away from Srila Gaura Das Babaji. And then he began to perform his sadhana. And he was chanting and chanting. So one day, some persons came to Gaura Das Babaji and they said, "Oh, Mahatma Ji, oh Babaji, you know, we understand that you are most exalted of great saintly persons. You are such an exalted sadhu personality, but there's also nearby, there's one person who, he's younger and he's doing a sadhana that is so intense, and he's chanting continually, non-stop, and tears are coming from his eyes. We think he must also be very advanced." Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj, he explained that person, what that person was doing, he gave an example of a young bride. And a young bride, she has just recently become married with her husband. And she has seen that other young brides and other women, they have given birth to children. So she also desired. Now she is married, now she also wants to have a child. But she has observed that those girls, those young ladies who gave birth, when this occurred, when the birth was occurring, they went into one room. And in that room, the delivery room, they made very many different types of sounds coming from them. And then a baby came. A baby came after that. So then this young girl thought, okay, I also want a child. So she also went into a room and tried to imitate the sounds that she heard. So many different types of sounds that she heard, expressing pain and so forth. And she thought that baby will come, but baby didn't come. Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj gave this example. He said this other person, he has constructed a hut and he is trying to do, but his level is that he is imitating. He has not yet become qualified. So simply by this, one cannot attain this high level of praying. There is a process that one has to go through, just like there's a process that the young bride has to go through. There's a natural process. She has to meet with her husband. They have to conceive a child, then she has to wait. And then after 9 months, then a child can come. So there's a process. Gaura Das Babaji gave the same example. If someone wants to attain this, it is not by imitation that one can attain this. So, Srila Gurudev is giving a comment here. According to the conclusion of the 6 Goswamis, Srila Kaviraj Goswami and other Rasik Vaishnavacharyas, they say the Lila Rasa, Leela Ras of Brajendra Nandan Shri Krishna, it is the object to be tasted by Raganuga sadhaks. So if someone is a Raganuga sadhak, actually, what is the object that they're trying to taste? The Leela Ras of Shri Krishna. Brajendra Nandan Shri Krishna. But it is not possible to taste the Leela Ras of Shri Krishna without entering into Shri Gaur Leela. Gaur Leela is the entryway into Radha Krishna's Leela Ras. In other words, only through the medium of Gaur Leela is it possible to taste the Leela Ras of Shri Krishna. So in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Kaviraj Goswami has stated this as follows. These are two very beautiful poetical verses. These are the classic verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita, quoted sometimes by Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. He liked these. Krishna Lila Amritasar, Tar Shata Shata Dhar, Dasha Dike Vahe Jaha Hoite. Se Chaitanya Lila Hoy, Sarovar Akshoy, Manohangsa Charaha Tahate. This means the pastimes of Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna's pastimes, Krishna Lila Amrita Sar, they are the essence of all transcendental nectar. Krishna Lila Amrita Sar. Tar Shata Shata Dar. These nectarine pastimes are flowing in hundreds and hundreds of streams. Dasha Dike Vaha Jaha Hoite. They are inundating all the 10 directions. Se Chaitanya Lila Hoy Saravar Akshoy. But the Lila of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the pastimes of Mahaprabhu, they are a Sarovara Akshoy. That means an imperishable reservoir of nectar. Manohangsa Charaha Tahate. Oh, my dear swan-like mind, Manohangsa. Charaha Tahate. Please wander on this transcendental lake. This is Kaviraj Goswami writing this at the end of Madhya Lila, at the very end of Madhya Lila, 25th chapter. Then he writes this other verse. Nana bhavera bhaktajan, hangsa chakravaka gan, jate sabe korena bihar. The devotees, Nana bhavera bhaktajan, that means the bhaktajan, the devotees, who are situated in Nana Bhav, various transcendental moods. All these different bhaktas, they have Nana Bhavera Bhakta. That means they have various different moods, bhavs. Hangsa Chakravaka Gan, they are just like hangsas, swans, and Chakravaka birds. Jate Sabe Korena Vihar. And they play upon the transcendental lake of Krishna's pastimes. Krishna Keli Su Mrinala Jahapai Sarvakala. Now, on that lake, there are sweet bulbs of the stalks of lotus flowers. These represent what? The sportive, amorous pastimes of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna eternally enacts such pastimes, and consequently they are the foodstuffs for the swan-like devotees who have taken shelter of Sri Gaur Sundar. So, Bhakta Hangsa Koraye Ahar, those swan bhaktas, Bhakta Hangsas, they are always eating these beautiful, sweet bulbs of the stalks of lotus flowers, which is Krishna's amorous pastimes. They have all taken shelter of Sri Gaur Sundar, who is the eternal embodiment of Vipralamba Ras. That is Gauranga Mahaprabhu, is the embodiment of separation mood, Vipralamba Ras. And identical, he is identical in form to Sri Krishna, who is the embodiment of Sambhog Ras. So the advice being given here is that through taking shelter of Gaur Sundar, then one will gradually become able to relish and taste Krishna Leela pastimes, Sambhog Ras. In his book Prarthana, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has similarly written, Gaur Prem Rasarinave. That means Gaur Prem is an ocean of ras, Rasarinave. Gaur Prem Rasarinave is an ocean of ras. Se tarange jiba dube. Those persons who submerge themselves in the waves of that ocean, that Gaur Prem Rasarnave, that ocean of Gaur Prem, then those persons who submerge themselves in the waves of that ocean, they will, from that ocean of Gaur Prem, they will emerge. And they will emerge into what? Se Radha Madhava Antaranga. Antaranga. They will emerge in the waves of the confidential and intimate service of Radha Madhava, Krishna, in Vrindavan. Through Gaur Prem, through Gaur Leela. They will automatically emerge. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj used to quote one verse about worship of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Very amazing verse. It is actually written by Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati. And he told there, in that verse, Yata yata gaur madara vinde vindeta bhaktim krita punya rashi tata tatot sarpati hridya kasmad radha sudamboja sudambu rasi. Yata yata gaur padara vinde. As much as one worships the lotus feet of Gauranga, Gaura padara vinde. Vindeta bhaktim krita punya rashi. As the desire to worship the lotus feet of Gauranga increases in the heart of that bhakta, then tata tatot sarpati hridya kasmat. Simultaneously, as a result of that, to the same degree that this desire to serve the lotus feet of Gauranga comes into the heart, yata yata gaura padara vinde. Vindeta bhaktim krita punya rashi. When those rays of the worship of the lotus feet of Gauranga Mahaprabhu come into the heart, then tata tatot sarpati hridya kasmad radha padamboja sudambu rashi. To the same extent, in the heart will arise this desire to worship the lotus feet of Sri Radha. Radha Padamboja Sudambu, which are the essence of all nectar. Sudha Ambu, the essence of all nectar. Srimati Radhika's lotus feet. So in this way, our acharyas, they are teaching us the conclusions of Rupa Goswami and the conclusions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that one will have to gradually become qualified through hearing about Krishna and Mahaprabhu's pastimes, but one can only enter into Radha Krishna's pastimes through Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Otherwise it will not be possible. So this method that has been given to us is very clear, that we always worship Gaur, and then we worship Radha and Krishna. We remember Gauranga Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna's form, combined with Srimati Radhika, to give the greatest mercy to the jivas in this world. We remember that, and then we become eligible to worship Radha and Krishna. So in this way, this subject matter is gradually unfolding. What is Raganuga Bhakti? What is Vaidhi Bhakti? What is the methodology of practicing Raganuga Bhakti? We'll continue with this in our next class.
Can we
Time has been
have something about the next class? We just talked to Mon, and he said we could do it Saturday or Sunday at 5:30. And he said it would be like your preference, and if you don't care, then he said just make it Sunday.
What's the preference of all the devotees?
Saturday, by the way, is Ekadasi. Just
Oh, Saturday is Ekadasi.
I think so.
We should do on Ekadasi. What do you think, Paul? Who is in agreement with Saturday?
Huh?
Who prefers Sunday?
I don't really care.
You prefer Sunday.
Yeah, but the majority looks like Saturday.
Saturday. 3 for Saturday.
Saturday.
That means Ekadasi day. Very, very good day. Ekadasi. We should definitely have program on
It
Ekadasis.
is, okay.
Okay, so it's concluded. Saturday at what time?
5:30.
5:30. Okay.
Where's that month?
Manmohan's house, that's in Veneta somewhere. I don't have the address, so
Yeah.
hopefully everybody else knows where it is.
That will be broadcast on our new email list, which
we haven't
everybody,
started yet.
which we are going to start right now at
Okay.
the conclusion of this class. Get the paper, get the pen, and no one will be ever uninformed again, because their email will be on this list and it will be sent out for all the programs. Jai Srila Rupa Goswami Pada Ki Jai. Jai Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu Ki Jai. Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu Harinam Samkirtana Ki Jai. Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai. Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanand. Is there that Mridanga or he took?
There's the...
I think this cardinal's Mridanga needs to be warmed up.
Where's the Mridanga? Oh, there's the Mridanga. Okay.
It's dull, it needs to get heated up.
Anyway, whatever it is, we'll try it.
Okay. It doesn't really matter where you...
Okay, after the kirtan.